Everyone, Adam here, So Was Your Podcast. Got another interview for you today. This one is with director James Watts. I had a amazing time doing this interview. We had a ton of fun, as you can see in the interview. We run a little long, but it's a great time. We do talk about his latest movie, Death Trip. Directing, we talk all things movie. We go on tangents. We talk about M. Night Shyamalan. We talk about everything movie related. It was awesome, and we actually had such a good time that James and I, and maybe some other people, we just did a top 5 video with one of James's friends who is into props in movies. So I'm sitting down with people in the movie business to talk movies for your entertainment and obviously selfishly my own. But this interview with James Watts, his newest movie Death Trip, is available now on VOD. It's a tense thriller. It's a very cool movie. I had a ton of fun doing this interview. I guess I can't stress that enough because I keep repeating myself. Enjoy the interview. Hey everyone, Adam here, So Was Your Podcast. Today I'm sitting down with James Watts, who has a new movie out, Death Trip. How you doing, James?
Good. Very good. It is a beautiful sunny day in Montreal, Quebec.
Oh, Montreal, okay. I'm in upstate New York, so I'm about 3 hours south of you.
Woo! I love, I was going to say I love upstate New York, but it's like, I just love New York State. I don't know.
Nice. All right.
We're very close. We're weather. In terms of weather, we can relate to each other.
Yeah, I was actually born in Montreal, so I'm familiar.
All right. There you go.
We got something in common already.
Okay, this is maybe a too personal question to ask at the beginning of an interview that is not of you. But why did you, where were you born in Montreal and when did you move, if you don't mind me asking?
I was actually born in Laval, so right outside Montreal. My dad's from there. He was born there, lived there his whole life in Montreal. My mom's from Cohoes, New York, which is right by me now. And they met at a friend's wedding, and then he moved down here for work and to be closer to her side of the family.
I am so jealous of everyone with dual citizenship.
Yep.
It's like the greatest. I'm so envious, always.
Well, especially in these times, I think that might be coming out of my back pocket.
hop the border.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
All right.
Sorry, yeah.
Now that you're interviewing me, why don't I ask you something? And
yes,
I want to ask how you got started in movies, and not like necessarily what was your first job, but like when did that creative spark hit you?
Well, okay. So a lot of people, I feel like most millennials, Dawson from Dawson's Creek included, just like Steven Spielberg was like the thing when you were growing up. It was so much Steven Spielberg stuff. And also in the 90s, it was like directors were like the most famous thing for some reason, less than now, I think. And the combination of all that stuff and also just Scholastic book fairs, special effects books that they always were pushing hard growing up. I love movies. I love them growing up and I always wanted to make them. It's such a boring answer. I don't know. I love movies. My whole family loves movies. I've watched so many my whole life. I worked at 3 different video stores before, rest in peace, they didn't exist anymore. And yeah, that's like the beginnings of young James. It's just, I love movies, but I don't
always drawn.
Yeah, I love the biggest one. And this is the saddest thing about physical media. Although I did see an interview with you with someone else where I saw your Blu-ray or video wall behind you.
Oh yeah.
But no commentaries. I watched commentaries on DVDs like relentlessly growing up. It was my favorite thing. They've taught me so many tricks.
That's awesome that you bring that up, because one thing that I'm like lamenting in this age of everything going digital, like I love being able to sit down and watch 6 movies back to back without getting up, because you could just jump to channel. But you don't get the extra features most of the time.
Well, this is why the Criterion channel was like the greatest gift ever when they started putting their special features up on there. It was like, oh, someone's doing it finally. And also why I hoard certain DVDs. I have I have a ridiculous wall of Blu-rays and DVDs, but I also just have shelves that I keep them in sleeves because I can't take up space. But I'm just so scared of losing the special features. There's so many amazing. Well, actually, the best one is, did you ever see the Jinx, that show, The Jinx? It was like,
I've heard of it. I never saw it.
It's like Robert Durst, who's like a really famous, infamous man. He was very rich and he killed his wife and all these things. And the director made a movie that was like a biopic about him with Ryan Gosling playing him. And the greatest thing, that movie's like not that good, but the commentary track has Robert Durst being like, yes, this is very accurate. Of course, I didn't commit the murder part of the story, but it's just that sort of stuff. I'm just so sad doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool that they got the real guy. I'd have to go back and do that one.
I know.
I
I don't know
love
why he
commentary
would agree
tracks.
to it. Seems like a crazy entrapment plan.
Everyone wants their 15 minutes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially lately, because podcasting is kind of like what people do on the go and all that. And when I was working in an office, it would be podcasts all day. And now that I'm working from home, I can't really be watching a movie. I'm working, but I can listen to a commentary track and then look up to get my reference. So that's been awesome.
I'm so glad you do that as well. The same thing. I do it when I wash dishes. I listen to commentary tracks.
Yeah, that works. Whenever you can't be like fully focused in, it's a good way to absorb things, and it's like a podcast, like you're listening to a conversation.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, before podcasts, there was commentary track. It's like the easiest transition for me in the world when podcasts started coming out. I was just like, just the exact same, but no movies playing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Out of all the people that I've been interviewing, you're the first one to bring up commentary tracks, and
I know.
It's like a lost art.
No, they're so useful. They just explain so much, especially like as like a film school thing. There's so many little things that you get from commentary tracks that even just as asides, you're like, that they wouldn't teach you because they're just tricks. So
right.
Yes, I would recommend to anyone who is a burgeoning filmmaker watch so many commentary tracks. They're so fun. You also get to see what the people are like in real life, which is the famous ones are the greatest are the Paul Verhoeven and Arnold Schwarzenegger ones on like Total Recall, and where Arnold Schwarzenegger just literally listing what's happening in the movies. Like, this is crazy. You can see here, I'm so strong and I'm beating him because of my strength.
Yeah, he really didn't get the concept, but
but it's what you want Arnold Schwarzenegger to be like in real life. So you're like, yes.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so young James just obsessed with movies, couldn't get enough, watched all the extra features, watched the DVDs. Montreal actually has a pretty reasonable access to show business, if I understand right.
Yeah, well, Montreal is amazing for show business, but it's kind of like I was gonna say like Bollywood, but it's not even. It's just that there's a million movies getting made here, but they're for French speaking populations. So there's like this whole amazing industry, but it's not necessarily one that Kelly and I, who made the movie with me, have access to because we're just English. But it's the coolest thing about Montreal is it has the like private government funding to just crank out their own movies. I mean, even the weirdest thing is with COVID stuff, they're opening movie theaters for like a week next week, and they're just doing it to screen. The premiere is saying it's to screen Quebecois movies, which is just like the perfect example of how much money they put into their own industry. But there is a big art scene. But that being said, our money for this movie came from ourselves, but the distribution came from America. All of that sort of stuff, I feel like, is not going to come from inside Montreal, which is quite sad because I love it here.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. Was that any like leg up in you getting involved in making movies? Like, because wanting to was one thing, and then you proactively went after it. But I guess your location was not a help in that.
No, well, I moved here to go to film school at Concordia. And then after that, I worked at the Just for Laughs Festival, which is our big comedy festival in Montreal. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed comedians and made promos for that. But I just worked freelance video editing and directing jobs for commercials, and I still do. But to make a movie, Kelly and I just like put like our saving. It was not expensive. The movie is so cheap. It's like, I don't know if you've seen it, but it is a $20,000 Canadian movie. By $20,000 Canadian, I mean, I guess that would be like 15,000 American or something like that. I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
What how it works out, the conversion. But very cheap. We just saved our money for a year, basically, and then threw it into the movie and just prayed someone would want to release it.
Nice. Before Death Trip, though, I mean, you said you did interviews and freelancing stuff. Was Death Trip your first movie? I thought you had something before that.
Well, it was our first. It's the first feature-length thing I've ever done.
Okay.
But before that, I made tons of shorts. I made a movie about local freak punks, the Nodes, when they were retiring. But I just made shorts and comedy stuff for years, but never a full movie. This is the first. We really just like went in blind.
That might be
wanted to make it.
Did you find going in blind was kind of the best thing for it? Because maybe if you knew some of the hurdles you had to cross, it would have scared you off from doing it.
Yeah, well, I've heard there was an interview, a really funny, self-reflective interview with like M. Night Shyamalan a couple years ago, where he's like, "Listen, my career has not gone the way I wanted it to. I'm the first to admit I have not made the greatest run of movies in recent years." But he was talking about basically the first chunk of his career where he like knew he had ambition but not experience. So it was like he would basically what you're saying. You're like, I'm going to shoot this and it should be fine, right? And then, of course, it's way too much work than what you had planned or what is feasibly possible. But you get it done. Like there's a scene in our movie that's a party scene where we shot the whole thing in one night, and I was like, we're gonna do this, you guys. And it was like we filmed till like 4 a.m, and it was just like we split the 4 characters up, so I had to film like 4 different party scenes and make sure that like no one was in the back. It was just so dumb, but we wouldn't have done that if we had more experience. And I'm glad that we did it. That's basically
it worked out. Yeah. Here's a sidebar, because you said you really like talking about movies, so I guess we can do these tangents.
Yes, please.
What do you feel about M. Night Shyamalan? I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
I would love to talk about M. Night Shyamalan.
All right.
No, I love The Sixth Sense. My favorite trivia fact, I read that there's a really great book called Best Movie Year Ever that came out last year. That was all about 1999. And in it, the funniest thing is, I don't know if you've seen She's All That or how well you remember that movie.
I've seen it, but it's not like in the forefront of my mind.
Well, you should be. Remember, no, there's like the best scene in that movie is Freddie Prinze Jr. is doing like a hacky sack free poetry thing to impress the main character, Rachel Lee Cook. And I found out that M. Night Shyamalan wrote that scene, and it's the weirdest scene of that movie. And I thought it was hilarious. But sorry, I'm going on a side tangent.
No,
love M. Night Shyamalan. I think like most people, The Village and starts kind of maybe going downhill. But I will say, I haven't talked to a lot of people about this because I don't know if 10 people have seen it, but I like his Apple Plus show. I know he directs not a lot of it, but Servant, I think that plot is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm rooting for him. I don't hate any movies is the secret. Although I was so mad about not Split, but the one that came right afterwards, the third one that was all 3 of them. Yeah, what the fuck's that called?
But it was like blanking on it too.
What is the greatest opportunity? Like I was like, oh, this is like a long, like years of just this is now the 3. They're all going to be in it, and it was just the fact that bulk of that movie is all them in like an interrogation room, which is like, oh come, I was so mad.
Yeah, what a wasted opportunity.
I know, but no, that's my damn Night Shyamalan take. Is I also respect the twist, even if it's bad. I love a good twist. This is like the thing with our movie is Kelly and I both really love the Scream franchises. It's franchise, not plural, because of the Scooby-Doo aspect in it, where it's like there's someone in this cast of characters, and one of them is the murderer, and not till the end will the mask come off, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, it was the boyfriend." And even if it's a horrible twist, it's my favorite thing ever. And they like that. It must suck to be M. Night Shyamalan because you have to make a twist. If you don't, people will be upset. It's like the Rolling Stones not playing Satisfaction or something.
Right.
But it's like, I love when I go into an M. Night Shyamalan movie being like, okay, let's get ready for a delicious twist. And some of them are like The Happening. I don't know if you remember what the twist at the end of The Happening was, but it is so psychotic. It's like that they were just, it's that the last act of that movie is that they're in different bunkers. And that's the big twist. It's that they're just speaking. It's so weird. There's no real twist. You could tell he's kind of just like, this is a twist, right, you guys? Please.
Yeah.
But that's my tangent.
I am largely on the same page with M. Night Shyamalan, and I'm really happy to hear someone else say it, because I feel like if you go on the internet in general, if that's a thing, he just gets skewered, like the poor guy. And I think he's kind of a victim of the studio system. Like it seems like, hey, you did this thing. We liked these 5 elements. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. And when you can't do it again and again and again, like, what are you going to do? And then it's
he tried to
Servant.
He tried to do, Servant, I think is the greatest premise. It's so fun. But he tried with, I guess, After Earth and The Last Airbender, which both I haven't seen, so I can't say anything about them. But I do remember people just hating those movies.
Yeah, you're okay to just move past them. You're not missing out.
Lady in the Water is interesting though. It's like not a good. I guess I don't know what you call a good movie, but it is like the craziest thing I've seen in a long time.
I enjoy that one. I even enjoy The Village, even though it's a little hokey. But
great twist. Village, I gotta say, out of all the movies, the most sensational twist I'd ever was like, oh my goodness. Everyone, I was holding my breath.
And Lady in the Water, it at least delivered everyone Bryce Dallas Howard, who just does great work. So
yes, Dallas of the Howards.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a bit of a tangent. Sorry to go way off.
I love this.
I forget where we were, but I guess it doesn't really.
M. Night Shyamalan twists. I don't remember where we were either. I do. My last thing I'll say about M. Night Shyamalan is there's a really good book about filming Lady in the Water. Like that's like a access on the behind the scenes of it. That's just fascinating because it's him being like, I'm making my Citizen Kane. He's like really like into this movie. And the other thing that I find funny about him is that when people know him, they call him Knight. That's the name he goes by. I find that hilarious. If you're to meet someone and he was like, call me Knight. You're like, oh, okay.
I'm not even sure what the M stands for, so maybe it's really hard to pronounce.
Mr. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, there you go. You nailed it.
It was Marcus or something.
Something really, really simple and not artistic. So he's like, don't go with that.
Melvin Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. It's his dad's name. I think we were talking about Quebec and you moved there you moved there for film school. So it wasn't really your in. I do think it's cool. I mean, as much as it's kind of a hindrance that they have their own little bottle movie world or movie and TV world, it's also kind of cool that exists.
Oh, it's amazing. It's like when you see there's like all these amazing movies that come out of Europe and you'll see like you'll like watch the new like maybe like Lars von Trier movie or something that's just like so like horrific and you find out that like a huge portion of it was just funded by the Swedish government. You're like, oh my God. But it's a bit like that where it's cool. They don't need to access like money. It's more about culture than it is money, I guess, for those movies. And you get a lot of great. I mean, the two of the biggest Hollywood directors came out of Montreal in the last 5 years, which are Jean-Marc Vallée and Denis Villeneuve. So it's like you get some people coming out of here through that system.
Yeah,
I love it. I'm just not able to get into it. That's
well, it's such its own enclosed world. It's fascinating that it's 6 hours from New York City, but the two worlds do not cross really at all, other than people who are professionals coming to work on other stuff.
The only the New York City connection that I was always obsessed with is I live in Mile and Outremont in Montreal, and we have a big like Hasidic population. And there is the only other big one like that in North America is in Brooklyn. And there's a really cheap bus you can take that I don't know if I'm saying this publicly, if I'm breaking the rules, but that to cross the border, you go with on the Hasidic bus, and you can't sit with your girlfriend if you're not married and all these things. But you go right from Mile End to Brooklyn, and it looks like the exact same because it's just the one enclosed world. But I don't know why I'm rambling. I was trying to connect it to New York. That and bagels. I don't know. I think there's like a bagel feud that I am firmly on the side of Montreal, obviously. I think there's better bagels.
Outremont also has the best smoked meat sandwich place I've ever been to. So,
which one? Was it Lester's or Schwartz's? Those are the two big ones.
It was Lester's, but not. There was like some feud, right?
Yeah, well, I don't. Lester's in my mind is I guess if like Schwartz's is the Beatles, Lester's is the Rolling Stones, I guess is an easy way to say it. But it's like Lester's is the one that it has as much, I guess, age and cachet, but it's less. It's not like the number one.
Yeah, Schwartz's is Lester's. Like if you go to TripAdvisor, where do I get smoked? Yeah. It's going to be Schwartz's, but I think Lester's is like maybe not so hidden, but I think that's the one.
And they have Lester's at the airport. If you ever fly into
Montreal, that's the one. Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah.
It's right beside me. I lived like 3 minutes away. I used to go there for breakfast before in the old times, I guess.
Yeah, when you were allowed to go places. That's awesome. Whenever I'm in Canada, like I remember we drove an hour out of our way so I could grab a sandwich before we came back.
No, it's like so filling. It's one of those things where I have like refused. I have not allowed myself to look it up because I know that it is so bad for me. just to be like,
Oh,
what? These smoky
yeah.
sandwiches, what's the like fat
It took
ratio
2
or
years
whatever?
off your life every time you eat one, for sure. But it
Please don't
tastes so
think about
good.
it.
So, film school. What was that like, and were you able to do your own projects in it?
My first year of film school, the answer is yes for projects. The first year of film school, I'm lucky because I was one of the last. I found it 2 years after me they got rid of this, but in my year, you had to shoot your first year film on 16 millimeter. So I had to shoot it on film and edit it on the Steenbeck at night and all these things. And I mean, I'll never shoot film again unless I have a ton of money and a DP that's handling everything. But it is the coolest thing that I now know how horrible and hard it is to work on film, and I love it so much. But my professor in the first year was like in Canada, we have the National Film Board, which was huge for documentaries in the 60s. So there's a lot of old film board guys who are just like big sweaters, very calm, like when you think of like a documentarian of a certain age, it's like, my first year I had a professor who was like that guy, who was amazing, super encouraging. He gave me two of his family's cars for my first year film. He just like lent them to me.
Nice.
Barely knowing me. I was 18. And my second year I went into documentary because there's three kind of channels you can go in, and one is narrative, which is you are part of a full crew and you're shooting on 35. And then there's experimental, which is just whatever, and you can shoot whatever you want, do whatever you want. And then there's documentary, which I primarily took because I like talking to strangers, but I also wanted to shoot on digital. So the answer is I got to do whatever I want, but also I did not enjoy it a bit. I don't know. I don't want to like talk down film school, but there is a thing of like, I do feel like for what I was doing at the time, like I could have like learned everything within a year with YouTube tutorials. But I did through that I minored in film studies, which was my favorite thing. That was like it's so invaluable because it's just the first year is just like film from 1896 to 1930. And it's just like, oh, this is like a huge blind spot in movie knowledge, and it's so fun. So I like that. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm really rambling. I tried to get out of film school as fast as I could. I like met with the head of film production and was like, listen, I got this internship at the Just for Laughs Festival doing comedy videos. Like, it's what I want to do. Just give me a fucking break, please. Just give me like the 6 credits and we'll count it as internship and I can graduate early. And he was nice enough to write cross. He really helped me out and I graduated early because of that, because I was not loving film school.
Oh, well, it's too bad you didn't like the experience, but if it makes you feel any better, I think that's just college.
Yeah, this is kind of what I've thought, because I did like the experience. Like the best thing ever was the first is if you go to film school. I don't know if this is ever an experience. I'm assuming it is, but the first day is like you look in the class and everyone is like, there's like a Tim Burton one and there's like a Spike Jonze one, and just there's like it just the vibe is very. It's like really funny to show up and see like all these like I am 18 and I know who I am personalities, which I'm sure I was exactly the same. Mm-hmm. But it's that was fun. It's fun to just meet strangers and disagree with them about movies
in the best way.
Yeah, that was the best part of the whole experience.
Yeah, at least you're surrounded by like-minded people. Like if you're not going to make the same kind of movie, at least you're both there for the same ultimate purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is what I'll say this about film school. The person who shot our movie beautifully, Spencer Gilly, was in film production as the same year as I, and we were never in the same class, and we weren't even really close or friends at that point. We met each other like 5 years after. So it's just like all the things I could have gotten from film school, I still just got outside of film school. So it's like a weird, like, I don't know who's to...
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that's just college in general, where they're like, here's 6 months of learning spread out over 4 years. We need to get paid. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, it's too bad you didn't love it, but it sounds like you got the connections and the skills you needed to out of it.
Yeah, well, the other thing that I'm really talking it down and I'm saying tutorials and stuff. The other thing is like they just force you to care about things that you probably wouldn't, especially if you just like, I want to be a director. That's it. And so they force you to learn about lenses and just practical stuff that I will have forever, and I'm really grateful of. But I'm also jealous of people. Like in films, like you learn like certain things, like continuous editing, where you're like, oh, I can't edit this type of shot value to this type of shot value because it will take the viewer out and distract people. And these are all things that like are super helpful and help you to edit like a seamless movie or whatever. But it's I'm also envious of people who didn't go to film school who will just edit in the craziest way ever. And I'm like, oh my God, they're breaking the rules. And I'm very jealous because I just don't have that ability, because I am so hardwired to be like, no, the audience will be distracted if I cut from this angle to this angle. It'll take them out of it or whatever.
Yeah, that might not always work though, because you're probably thinking of examples where that works and the people know it was going to work, but there's probably a lot of movies that you've never seen that like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah, well, that's the truth. I am underselling. I'm talking about the rare genius.
Yeah,
who
right.
Just has the impulse to edit something so crazy. I'd imagine like Harmony Korine or someone like that who didn't, I don't think, went to film school, or was just like a weirdo kid. Those are the people who like that benefit from not going to film school.
Just has the eye for it.
Yeah, or just freaking out the squares.
I'd imagine, like, I think it was cool when you brought up that you had to shoot your first thing on 16 millimeter, and you were saying it was technically kind of a nightmare, but you got to do it. Like, you got to learn from the ground up.
Yeah, I'll always, for the rest of my life, know how to load 16 millimeter into a Bolex camera in the dark. It's like a thing they train you because you can't expose the film. But I don't know if I'll ever use that knowledge. But I love that I have it. And I also love that I edit on the Steenbeck. That's the one thing I wish I could still do. It's so fun to physically edit. Also, for someone like me, it's really neat to organize your thoughts with physical. I don't know. I liked it. I also was a lazy student, so I booked my editing rooms last, so I ended up having to do like night editing because I was the last available space. But all that stuff I really remember fondly, of like editing overnight. And I also, my first year film was like a musical dance, like a freaky musical dance thing, and editing to music on a Steenbeck is like the hardest thing ever, because you have to time it out to the audio track, and then you send it. If you go to sound mix after that and it doesn't sync up, you're like, I don't know, I can't take this back, I'm screwed.
Right.
So that was really hard, but a really fun challenge. I loved it.
That's awesome. What do you prefer to shoot on now? I mean, obviously digital, but
I have honestly no real preference. I wish I had more. I mean, the thing is, we shot this movie on the Canon C300 Mark II, and it was really good. And that we found out afterwards was like a documentary camera, because it's like a workhorse. And we shot it in the snow, like in the coldest weather possible. So if we had shot with a more sensitive camera, it would have died like 20 minutes into most takes, because it was so cold. But I honestly, I wish I had. I mean, I've shot with so many different things over the years. I mean, shooting on red is obviously the funnest thing ever, because it just immediately looks amazing, and the flexibility in post production is like, mwah. But I don't. Yeah, I have no preference. I've seen movies that look horrible. I mean, one of the most entertaining movies ever is the Celebration. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. It's shot on mini DV. It's by the same guy who shot 28 Days Later and went on to shoot Slumdog Millionaire and all these things. But it looks amazing, and it's shot on DV cam. It's all about the movie. I have no preference. Although I would obviously be sad if people stop shooting on film forever, because it is very, very nostalgic, and I like it. And also proves that you worked hard.
Yeah, I think there's only a few people left who are, planting their feet in that camp.
I know. God bless him. It's my favorite thing ever. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, because I watched Tenet finally, and it was like, I was like, who is Christopher Nolan? I can't get a read on this guy. And it was like, all I know about him is that he loves film, and I guess he doesn't care about romantic relationships. Those are the two things that the two constants I know about him.
And he always goes for it.
Yeah, goes so hard.
He doesn't do small. All right, here's another tangent. What did you think of Tenet? Because everyone I know is 50-50.
Oh, I could talk about that movie. I was obsessed with Tenet because it's like it's like kind of the greatest stoner movie of all time because it has like lines where someone is like one of the lines at the beginning where it's like to truly understand the purpose of this mission or no, to know the full purpose of this mission entirely is to fail. And you're like, what? Like a ton of stuff like that. I also am really rooting for John David Washington, Denzel's son, who's in that movie.
Oh,
The
I don't
star of
know.
that movie is Denzel Washington's son.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that. I didn't know that.
I'm really rooting for him. Yeah, no, he has the voice. He sounds like Denzel Washington.
Now that you say it, yeah, it's obvious, but I didn't put that together.
I'm really rooting for him just because I love Denzel Washington. I'm like, God gave us another one. If he's good, we're just gonna keep going. We got like 10 more years, 20 more years, 30 more years. But yeah, no, it's hard because obviously that movie is just insane. I love the sequence in the paint with the art gallery heist in the airport. That was like the greatest, like give a director money, whatever he wants thing that I was watching, where it's just destroying cars, like the most expensive cars ever, just destroying them with this airplane, crashing it. And the reason to do that is to create a diversion so they can do the heist. It's the most reckless.
They could have pulled a fire alarm, but instead they crashed a jumbo jet.
Yeah. Amazing. And I liked what was the other? There's one other thing. Oh yeah, so the only thing that I will say that's weird about that movie that such a missed opportunity is the final sequence where they are going in shifts of they're going in 10-minute alternations with the same, like, I want to say like squad or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one's going forward and one's going backwards. Everyone has masks on. So it's like already the most confusing thing. And then you can't tell who it is. So it's just one of those things where I'm just like, take off their mask, please. I need to see their faces. It's like but that being said, there was a moment in that where like the bottom half of a building exploded while the second half reverse exploded or something at the same time. And that was another stoner moment where you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Not seen that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be a cult movie because it does. I was really rooting for it because I liked oh my God, his war movie. They're come to Dunkirk, my boy. Dunkirk.
Oh, Dunkirk. Yeah, that was good.
Because I always thought that maybe his brother was the reason why some of his movies weren't like always entirely successful, and that when his brother left and started doing Westworld and he did Dunkirk, I was like, oh, finally, he did the thing that I've always wanted, which is like he does the sequences where there's like three things happening at once, and it's like really exciting. You're like, oh, this person's breaking into this while this person's doing this, and Dunkirk was just that for like an hour and a half straight. So
yeah.
Oh, finally, like who cares about plot? There's a war going on, British boys, whatever, and then the rest is just this like really intense sequence for a full movie. So I was kind of hoping for that with Tenet. Like if Tenet had no plot, if no one said anything, I think I would maybe like it more almost. It was just like it's so confusing. And it seems like it makes sense. And then there's just little things that you're like, that can't be right. Like the name is 10 and then 10 in reverse. And then the final sequence is them going in 10-minute increments, one forward and one backwards. And you get into this thing where you're like, is that why it's called Tenet? Or is that just like, am I thinking? There's a lot going on. But also the greatest, one of the greatest starts, like opening scenes. I love the beginning of that movie where they're at the orchestra and someone kicks down the cello and you're like, oh, it's on. I'm very excited. But that's the same with Dark Knight Rises as the greatest first scene in like any movie ever. It's like my favorite thing still. I watch that clip by itself all the time. They're like, shoot him.
Just the plane hijacking, yeah.
Oh my God. So fun. And the part where the one guy is like about to go with them and he's like, no, they'll expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. He's like, yes. And he's like, oh, these guys are so this
complete crazy zealots. Yeah. I like Tom Hardy's Bane.
I know. I love Tom Hardy. He's like the greatest, like go 120 for performance ever. I still haven't seen Venom. I hear that's the craziest Tom Hardy performance. Just so weird.
I skipped that one.
There you go. You and I have not seen it. But I'm rooting for him. He's the greatest I guess he's one of the best looking like actors alive, and he's covered his face more than any actor.
So he's wearing a mask and mumbling. Yeah. Did you see the movie where he played the Cray twins?
I've been dying to see that movie.
Oh, you got to see that. That's great.
Legend?
Yeah, Legend. Yeah, that's really good.
I love what's the one, Locke, where he's in the car? I don't know if you ever saw that one, where just him driving stressed out for a movie. It's like a contained to a car, the whole
I think
plot.
it was Locke, Locke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. I love also, what's the Nicholas Winding Refn movie? Bronson. Like
Oh yeah, he was really good in that. That was like his like when Robert Downey Jr. did Chaplin, like it was that level of impersonation. Or
all in.
who just played Churchill?
Oh, Gary Oldman. I haven't seen that.
Gary Oldman. Oh, that was he was perfect. I mean, obviously I never met Winston Churchill, but as far as I'm concerned, that's him.
Well, the weirdest version of it is Kelly and I went in our more like depressed COVID quarantine days in the last couple of months, have really found comfort in boxing movies for some reason. Neither of us are athletes or anything, but it's because I was like, oh, you should watch Creed. And we watched Creed and we were both like, oh, like that movie gets you so jacked.
Yeah.
And we watched The Fighter, and I remember watching that movie and being like, oh, Christian Bale is like maybe going too hard for this performance. Like, it's like pretty crazy. And then at the very end, they show the real guy, and he is like as crazy, if not crazier.
It's him. Yeah.
Perfect. It's so funny. It's like, I love actors. That's my final thing.
Yeah. And if you're going with, Christian Bale or Gary Oldman or Tom, like they are traditional actors. Like they do it right.
Christian Bale for like my age too is the weirdest, because I think like when I was growing up, it was just like I only thought of him as like freaky villains, because he was in like The Fifth Element and The Professional growing up.
You mean Gary Oldman?
Gary Oldman. Who did I say? Christian Bale?
Christian Bale, yeah.
Oh yeah, Gary Oldman.
Yeah. I was waiting for American Psycho, but
no, but yeah, American Psycho is the greatest. That's the funniest performance of all time. I love him so much in that movie.
But yeah, Gary Oldman, yeah, for sure. I think my first introduction to him was The Fifth Element. So then when I saw him in like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I'm like, that's that guy? Okay. It took me a little while to take him serious.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I like love that. It's like the funnest movie to watch. Like you have to actively watch it and remember all these code names, and you're like, okay, that person was there. It's just like a.
You almost have to take notes to get through it. Yeah. The first time I saw it, I was like, they could cut half this crap out. Like, what is this? And then you watch it again. You're like, okay, it's really well written. It's just, you have to be in the mood for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Yeah.
You're not getting home from a busy day at work and just popping it on casually.
TTSS. Nice. I was trying to give it a
shorten that down. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to get us back on our path, but I can't remember what our path
Film
was.
school. I'm out. That's where I think we left.
Yes. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask is you mentioned a couple times that you started doing like interviews and comedy related stuff, and Death Trip is very clearly horror. I'm kind of seeing that this is a trend. So was that intentional, or do you just like both? Or
I like both. I do think so. Like, so the Death Trip thing is like we went in, we wanted to write like a balls to the wall freaky horror movie, and we kind of failed because it's basically it's mostly a thriller, which I'm happy with it, but I feel bad that we couldn't make the scariest horror movie we wanted to. But the one thing with horror movies, I think they're all funny, even the scariest ones. It's like horror and comedy are the two genres that are like you can objectively tell if they work, because it's like if someone's laughing, it's a good comedy movie, and if someone's scared, it's a good horror movie. The rest is all up to interpretation. But all of my favorite horror movies are the funniest movies. Like, even I've argued with friends about this for years about whether The Shining is a comedy. Like, I find that to be the funniest. Like, I love The Shining and I find it very scary, but there's so many plot elements, specifically the Scatman Crothers, the like last hour of that movie, he's just like methodically moving towards the Overlook Hotel, and you're like, oh god, thank god for Scatman, we're gonna get out of this thing alive. And then as soon as he shows up, it's just bang, right away he gets axed, and you're like, oh no. And also that Jack Nicholson he starts at 11, so it's like the thing of being like, I don't even know if there's any suspense here. I think he's just gonna kill his family. I think he's so scary looking. And American Psycho is also one of those movies that to me is like a perfect movie because it is so funny and so scary. It's like I think all scary movies are funny. They do the same thing, just in reverse, I guess.
That's a good I don't know, a good connection for it. It's just funny because this is coming up a few times. Like even just yesterday, I was talking to a couple of people who made a movie called The Parish, which is a horror movie, but they put a lot of comedy into it. And both of them mentioned that they got their start in comedy, but were drawn to horror. And then when you kind of brought up the same thing, I was like, that's really interesting that these directors and actors are like, oh, I love comedy, had to do a horror movie. It's like, not a comedy movie, but I see what you're saying.
Well, because they're both the thing that's better. That I would say the reason why I think a lot of people are drawn to wanting to make horror movies is because it's like a storyteller director's medium in like the most, or not medium, I guess, genre in the most literal way, where it's just like you have to like everything you do has to provoke either like dread or fear. It's like, so you have to make choices constantly with that sort of stuff, but you're still like hyper aware of the audience, which is I think a lot of like if you make a drama about anything, you don't have to really think about the audience. We don't want to, because you're like, oh, they'll figure this out, or they're smart enough to put these things together. But we're a horror movie, you're like, this, you have to be aware, like they're scared here, we have to wait. And comedy is the exact same way, where you're like, oh, you have to pause long enough for the laughter to die down for the next joke, or like, oh, if you think the joke's not that strong, you have to move fast. It's just, they're very you're making them for someone, whereas the other ones you are as well, but it's not the top priority.
Yes, exactly what you're saying. In a drama, you can tell your story kind of on your own terms, but in a comedy or drama, it's almost like a call and response, where you need put it out there, reaction, next beat, put it out there, reaction.
Well, okay, what's your favorite? I'm trying to think of like a horror movie that like isn't funny. I know it's like by funny I mean like because even movies that are scary, I like you laugh after a scare because it's so you get like,
that relief because it's like a safe kind of scared.
I guess like Blair Witch Project, one of those movies that's just like not that funny because it's just you're like, oh god, like it just you just feel bad the whole time. But
yeah, I find the ones that are too dours, like maybe it's interesting to see what someone pulled off once, but it's not like you can go back to it very much.
Yeah, it's not that it's I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, I find all horror movies pretty funny, but also not like in the way where I'm laughing at them. I just think there's like a kind of like a little like a sneaky edgelord grinning person behind all of them that's just like, yes, you're scared. And all of the top horror directors I always hear are like the nicest people, the nicest, calmest. Whereas like a lot of the like directors, like dramatic directors or whatever, are monsters. So I don't know what that's about. But
the one who throws me off a little bit is Eli Roth. Like I think if Eli Roth wasn't making movies about killing people, he would just literally be killing people.
Well, Eli Roth, by the way, made a movie that is Kelly and I, like a movie that everyone hates. And I can't really defend it, but it's Kelly and I's favorite movie. And the movie that we think is a hilarious comedy is that one with Keanu Reeves, Knock Knock. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
Where the two girls come into the house and yeah, I was watching that and I put it on because Keanu Reeves and then I saw it was Eli Roth and I almost turned it off, but I was like, well, you know, I have nothing but time for movies. So
my defense of that movie is that the way they torture him is like the worst nightmare for like a middle-aged man who is like scared of losing his relevance. So it's like Keanu Reeves. I love Keanu Reeves, but you could argue his hair is too long for his age at this point. It's one of the things where you're like, you still have the 90s haircut, dude. You're like a grown man. And so there's like a scene where he's like DJing for them. They're like, ooh, cool DJing. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. And then they torture him by like wrecking his record collection. And, like, cutting his long hair. And he's like, no. And we just thought that was like the funniest thing ever. And it's also like, I don't know how intentional it is, but it was like, I love that movie. But Eli Roth, I think, unfortunately, is too good looking for his job. I think he seems, it's the thing I was talking with friends where it's like, I think a lot of people, Quentin Tarantino can say some of the darkest things or the grossest things in interviews, and you just, because of what he looks like and how he speaks, you're like, oh, this guy like was definitely bullied growing up and is like a nerdy guy. Like you feel like he like loves movies in a way that you're like, you root for him. He seems like an underdog or something. Whereas Eli Roth is just like a handsome guy with like nice haircut and like scary eyes. So you're like,
the eyes that set me off. I think Tarantino, too, when you interview him, you could definitely tell he's just as big a film geek as you watching a film guy's interview. Because he'll talk about something in his movie and then he's laughing and he's doing this and it's all just because like, well, why'd you put that in your movie? Because it's a great movie, and he laughs and, you know, you can like hang out with him. Where Eli Roth, it seems like he's like,
yes.
He's dialed into another dimension. Yeah.
I found out that Eli Roth, Quentin Tarantino, and Edgar Wright lived together for about a year at like Quentin Tarantino's house sometime in the mid 2000s. I thought that was like the funniest movie geek, I guess, summer camp
They should have just put cameras up in that house, because that had to be just ridiculous.
Yeah, my God. But yeah, no, Eli Roth is maybe the most indefensible director that I still like. I like his movies, and I can't defend. I can never defend them. Like, I like Hostel 2 more than Hostel 1 and more than a lot of movies because of the plot twist. But it's not even because of the movie. The movie's just so cruel. Like, all the torture stuff is like, you just watch it, you do not feel great about it, and you're like, I feel like he's doing this, and it's not a great feeling. But the greatest thing about that movie, I don't know if you saw Hostel 2 or you remember it at all.
I did, but I was not a fan. Sorry.
No. So I'll tell you what the one thing I like about it is that the twist. There's the two. They cut back and forth to the two guys who are like bidding on the hostile people to torture, and the one guy is like really jacked. Like, it's like they're like Bush era, like rich, like stock dudes. One's a doctor and one's I think a stockbroker, and they're like, the jacked up guy's like, we're gonna go and we're gonna kill some people. It's gonna feel great, dude. And the other guy's like, I'm just like nervous. I don't know. And then when they get to the torture moment at the end, the like jacked up guy's like, I don't know if I want to do this. And then like little guy is just like, I'm going to murder you because you look like my wife. And he's fully, and that also, I mean, that's a huge theme in Death Trip for Kelly and I, with the thing of like the wolf in sheep's clothing aspect of everyone, but like men in that instance specifically, of just like, I don't know, the quiet guy I think is much scarier than the loud guy. The loud guy is not, he's talking too much. Yeah, I feel like he's, I don't know. So this is my defense. Not my defense. Why? My defense of me liking Hostel 2. Not necessarily the movie, but that twist.
All right. Yeah. You don't have to defend it, but yeah. You can like what you like. I forget how we got on that as well. One other thing, we're just kind of all over the place, so I appreciate you rolling with me. You don't really have a preference on what you shoot with. How about editing? I'm guessing you still do your own editing?
Yeah, I love editing. That's the thing of like, I will never, I would love to edit everything I make. It's my favorite. Editing is the funnest and the longest. Yeah, I will edit everything I can, because you change as much as you want in editing. And also with the movie that's this low budget, maybe it's worse that I edited it, but also it's like held together with like masking tape. There's not a lot of flexibility in editing. So there's some stuff that like, I just like, it's hard to, it'd be harder for someone else to edit something like this just because of how shoestring everything was. You like, for cutaways and stuff, you kind of just have to know the footage so well, because you have to steal a shot from maybe another take to hide the fact that you didn't have these lines and all these things. But yeah, I love editing. It's so fun.
I always like it when the director also does the editing, because it's like, well, the director knows what they want it to look like, so why would they not assemble what they want it to look like? I mean, of course, it's two different jobs, but...
Well, the argument against it is that it's like the thing of being like being too close and not being able to see the whole thing. So I would imagine, I do understand the argument that like, oh, a fresh pair of eyes could really like re-inject this, because I'm sure I'm editing it being like, no, this is what I wanted. We will make this happen, even if it's like a bit of a stretch to try to push this scene through, even if we don't have all the takes. Whereas I think a fresh editor could come in. But Spencer, who shot our movie, really helped, and also Kelly is like the greatest for collaborating. She's like the person who I'll show something and she'll be like, ugh, that's so lame. And you're just like, okay, good. Like,
I heard it's got to go.
Yeah. All right, the dream is to be like, I think it's like, I was trying to think of directors. I think it's like Charlie Chaplin, maybe Vincent Gallo, and John Carpenter. I was trying to think of directors who have written, directed, edited, and scored the movies.
And scored.
That's the one. But John Carpenter doesn't count because they also have to star in it, which is where I guess you just get Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin. Yeah. You really slimming that the field down. Because at first I was going to be like, oh, I'm a big Kevin Smith fan because I like that he's concept, writer, director, edits on the fly, and then he even now brings it out to the audience. Like, he's there every step of the way.
Also, to what we were talking about earlier, king of the commentary track.
Yes, that guy can talk.
That's why I always like Ben Affleck more than most people, just because I listened to so many commentary tracks with Ben Affleck growing up when I was like in middle school or whatever on like Chasing Amy or Mallrats or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. I guess just to keep some sort of structure, why don't we take Death Trip from the beginning? Like, where did it start? What was the seed?
So the idea is Kelly. She had the idea for the ending, and I thought it was a really good idea. We both kept thinking about it for a while, and then it's like we thought about it for like a year. I wrote the outline. She took it and just took away whatever she thought was lame. Once again, this is why she is an invaluable collaborator. It's like I cannot tell what is good, or I guess cool or not cool. But then together we were like, we're gonna do this together, and I was like, you want to be in it? And she was like, all right. And then we cast the rest of the actors. When we wrote it, the character names were like Ross, Rachel, Monica, and Phoebe, because we knew we wanted the actors to use their own names. And in terms of character stuff, we knew what Garrett was supposed to be like and what Kelly was supposed to be like, but we kind of wanted everyone to kind of create their characters themselves. So the casting was cool because we just casted people who we thought were cool and then we liked, and we watched them hang out together, and I would film the different groups, and then the one that seemed like the best that everyone meshed, we just met with them and rehearsed for like 3 months. None of them were actors. We just like went over the scenes over and over again, and then we would just improv the scenes after that, and I would like type down everything everyone was saying, and then Kelly and I would look at the notes together the night after and be like, okay, this was good, and we kind of Frankensteined the dialogue from that. And then so when we went to shoot, everyone was like in their element, ready to go. No one didn't know any of the lines, and there was like no improvisation when we actually shot it because it was all rehearsed. But I don't even know if I answered your question. The idea is that we wanted, like I said before, there was like 3 goals where it's like I wanted to make a movie that was like it was like comically, the suspense was like comically not funny, but just like so much dread. Like I love like I was saying, like The Shining or Rosemary's Baby or all these movies where it's like just the whole, you're like, Jesus Christ, there is a lot that you feel like it's gonna happen, and then the last like 10 minutes it's just like bam 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 bam. And I know Kelly, like the idea of just like women's worst enemies being right under their noses the whole time. I think that we really like that idea, and because there's a few moments in the movie that are like, at one point all the characters, they go to this party and they go in the car with these like 4 guys. Meanwhile, they're like so scared of their next door neighbor who's just like one old guy who lives in the country. And in my mind, I'm like, there is nothing scarier than those 4 guys. And the old guy is just like a dude who lives like, he's like, I don't know, he's like, all he cares about is like, I don't know, like his retirement fund, or like
if like keep it down at night.
Like zoning restrictions don't let him have his yard sale. All these things that are like, he just doesn't care. Like these people are being rude and they're going to his property. And so the 2 places we came at it were that angle from Kelly and my angle of like when Kelly and I would go to the country, we would see like a sign that's like, turn back now or no trespassing or whatever. And because she like loves horror movies, she would see those and be like, oh God, this is a bad omen. We can't do this. And I'd be like, Kelly, please, we would get killed so much sooner in Montreal than right now in this zone. Yeah. So those 2 I thought would make a funny horror movie, because the characters are, I like the characters, but they're supposed to be a bit self-absorbed because they're just very judgmental. And I think that's like their ultimate, I don't want to say crime, but what they like, the flaw is that they are too caught up in themselves to realize the thing that's right in front of them. So I thought that was a fun.
I kind of took that to be almost like, oh, well, that's what people do in their early 20s. And it made me feel old, but I was like,
no, it's true though. Like there's a scene like when they're watching The Girl Next Door, and they're just all like, they're like, oh God, I bet she works at Tim Hortons down the road. Look at this thing.
Yeah, talk about how sad her life is. They have no idea.
I know, and people do that in horror movies all the time.
Oh yeah,
It drives me insane. I'm like, you in real life, you would. I mean, when you were younger, we would do that stuff too with our friends, but it's just objectively rude, I guess.
Yeah. It's different watching it on a screen where you're being totally judgmental and you're not like in the moment with your friends just trying to make someone laugh by saying something horrible.
I know. Well, it's a very, I don't know. It's very funny to me, all that the people being scared of the country, which is like makes sense. I mean, my favorite movie maybe ever is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I get it, but it's like it's still like, you know, it's not doing it's not doing anyone in the country any favors, those movies. Or maybe it is. Maybe people are not going to the country
Yeah.
leaving them alone, which is good.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre stopped hitchhiking, so
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I thought it was funny in the beginning. You have them. I mean, it's not really a spoiler. It's like, really early on. He uses a no trespassing sign to get his car unstuck from a snowbank. And it's exactly what you were just saying. It reminded me of in Cabin in the Woods, where they meet up with that old guy at the gas station. He's just flat out threatening them. And the guys at the control station are like, we basically tell them to turn around, and they don't do it. So
I wanted that so badly a scene, but we just did not have time. But I wanted them to go to a gas station, to have the classic horror thing of going to a gas station and people like just like looking at them confused, because I think in real life that happens probably all the time, but it's like a combination of like, if I go into a place with the energy of like, these people are going to like maybe threaten me because I've seen so many horror movies. Obviously someone walking in with that energy, you would respond like, what's this person's vibe?
Yeah.
Why are they? And so it immediately is antagonistic. There's no avoiding it.
You're walking in with an attitude, so instantly they're defensive, and then you're like, what's this guy's attitude?
Well, taking that sign is so funny, because I love that. I find that really funny that he does that with that sign. I also find it funny that he doesn't tell the three women in the car, like, he's like, I got this. He's like, don't worry. And they're like, is everything cool? And he's like, don't worry. And it's just like it would be so much easier if one of them got out and pushed the car.
Yeah.
But he was just like, no, we're going to put the sign, take the no trespassing sign, because it's like pretty badass, but also a very funny thing for an audience to be like, uh-oh, okay.
Yeah, and he hides it from everyone else, like you said, yeah. I also like when you were talking about how you wanted to build as much tension as possible, but then not really like open that release valve till the very end. Yeah. There's a few times where I'm going to say disoriented, but I don't mean it in a bad way. It was just like you'd go into a dream sequence and then out, but there was no like, wavy lines. This is a dream sequence. You're just like, okay, did that happen? What's going on here? And that tension building, especially when Garrett first goes into the other house. I'm trying to be kind of vague.
No, I mean, we can have if you want to have a spoiler-filled conversation, I guess we can. I don't know, honestly, what the best course of action is for interviews. But
I guess it's kind of up to you. And as long as we're talking about it now, so anyone who's watching, if they want to see the movie without spoilers, pause this, go watch the movie, come back.
I will. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So spoiler alert, everyone pause. The dream sequence. Oh, I don't even know what I was going to say. You can, they already paused already. Damn. Okay. I have to spoil. No, the tension is like, to us, it was very, we wanted it really to be like, without really being too abstract. Like, also we might have failed at all these goals, but have it be like almost entirely from the perspective of Kelly, the like theme of the movie. Like for there's 3 mornings, and the first 2 are like Kelly's eyes opening, and the third is Tatiana's eyes opening. So by the third morning, we're in Tatiana's head, but it's like the dreams are basically what Kelly's worst fears are. So it's like, in the second one, Garrett, she like cares about Garrett, but maybe she's also jealous of the girl next door, but also like she's also terrified of the people next door, and she's thinking about the fact that the guy killed his wife maybe, and she's going crazy about that. Just like an intense paranoia of someone from the city being in the country. And then in the third, and all of these that we basically wanted to create that to be like, so when the twist happens with Garrett, or the turn happens with Garrett, and you're like, oh, he's like a bad guy. He's a bad dude. It was it's like Tatiana's the only one who saw it, or was even able to react to it, because she is the newest friend. She doesn't know anyone as well. And so she's able to look at this objectively and be like, Garrett's being weird right now. And she's also the one who's the least, she's the one who's like, we have to go. She's like the only one who says all the practical stuff through the whole movie.
Yeah, she's the audience.
I'm not going to unplug. I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to keep my phone on. We got to get out of here. I saw a thing in the woods. But yeah, no, the tension, I don't know if we did it entirely effectively, but I liked I wanted the thing. I liked the idea of a pot bubbling. I find it really fun.
Yeah.
And
that's what keeps you hooked.
Yeah, that was the main thing. I hope to, when I read reviews about this movie, is that they could say it's not they can say it's not good, but I don't want people to say it's boring. I mean, it might be boring, but I really don't want it to be boring. That's like the one thing I was just like, just keep it moving, or keep people interested.
There was a lot of similarities and stuff, like when Garrett is first in the house, the dream is that then the neighbor's dad, or the older retired guy who's just really honestly minding his own business the whole time, cracks him in the back of the head with a croquet mallet. Then the next morning he's like, no, we're not going to talk about a relationship. We got to go play croquet. And it's just like, of all things, like, was that just like her subconscious? Like maybe he mentioned it and she put it into the dream. It was just such a weird,
well,
like,
that's
connection.
real. That is what happened. There is a thing we cut out of the movie. Two things. One is him and Tatiana talking like together, like, oh, we're gonna play snowcay. We're gonna do croquet in the snow. It's gonna be so sick, like when they're drunk, and then they tell everyone like, we're doing croquet. And then the next morning, the other thing we cut out was a lengthy croquet sequence. That was just like a fun game where they were like, woo! And that sequence existed so that Garrett would be frustrated by the fact that they weren't taking croquet seriously enough. And then he like throws his mallet in the air and he's just like, play your own fucking game, and storms out. And that was supposed to be like a first taste of like, ooh, he's losing. This guy seems like he has a bit of an anger issue.
Yeah, definitely got some control freak vibes from him.
Yeah, but we cut it out because we're like, oh, we have that a bit from him already. He's like yelling at the people at the beginning a bit. But yeah, the croquet, the whole thing was that this is what it's frustrating, is that he was suggesting croquet and we wanted the mallet to be there, but we also wanted Tatiana to have the mallet, and we wanted her to beat the shit out of him with the croquet mallet because he was so psyched about croquet. It's just like, to me, we thought it was so funny.
Like her throwing it back in his face very literally.
There's one shot at the very end of the movie where when they're fighting on the ice, she hits him with the croquet mallet once. And it's like, I get like a WWE like jacked when I watch it. I'm like, yeah, because it's so violent. And I like that. Yeah, like that she bests him with this croquet. It's like it was also a thing of us being like, what's a weapon we haven't seen in a movie?
Yeah.
The other reason.
Croquet mallet would definitely do it.
Yeah.
One part that maybe I'm confused on, or maybe I just saw it wrong, when Tatiana sees the foot coming out of the car and then the neighbor's like, hey, what are you doing back here? Was it just because she was on his property? Was there even a foot in the car? Did Garrett put the body in the car?
So there's another thing that that's in the movie, but I don't think it's super clear to people. And I'm very, I wish it was clear, even though there is a shot and it happens, but he's yelling at her because she's on his property. That's the way I always believed it to be.
I kind of figured that because Garrett was, by that point, you're pretty sure that it was going, the neighbor's not the villain.
And then when she finds the foot at the very end, when she's running through the woods, she takes the foot out and she sees it's like a Halloween style.
Oh, I must have missed that then. Okay.
And she's like, ugh, and then throws it down. And then she sees Garrett with the guy and steps away. So we just wanted the foot to be like a source of tension that was immediately like, oh, this is just some stupid shit that was in the car. And
the dog must have came in and jumped on me or something at that point, because I must have looked away right at the wrong time because I missed that.
But it's when Garrett, this is full spoiler, when Garrett kills Bruce Kingsley, that's when, right before Tatiana sees that go down, she sees the foot, takes it out, and is like, and you can hear that it's plastic. She like throws it down, and she's like, walks away. We like the idea of a foot being one of the distracting menacing things that is immediately just like, quickly, like so quickly thrown away. Just like, no, this wasn't happening.
Right. Okay. That makes a lot more sense than I just missed the exact key moment.
Well, no, this is the other thing is I'm obsessed with, I love the 2 David Cronenberg movies he made with, he actually made 3, but I love the 2 with Viggo Mortensen, the History of Violence and Eastern Promises, because they both have twists, but they're both really rewarding the second time you watch them. Like the twist is not illogical, so it's like all the hints are there when you watch it the second time. It's like a different movie. So I really wanted it to be the thing of like, if you watch this a second time, it's like you're watching Garrett, and it's all, you could see him planning everything, because everything that gets prevented from saving them is because of him at some point or another. You just see various things, like he's the one who calls the ambulance, or like he's the one who calls the taxi, or he doesn't want them to go to the party. Like a lot of these things are Garrett's fault, and I thought it'd be a fun thing to put in the movie that you maybe don't notice the first time. Also, we want to be funny, like to try so hard to make the most obvious villain not be the villain, like to make people not think he was the villain, because it's like he has that face, and it's 3 women and 1 guy, and then the twist being like, oh, it's just the guy. Like I just thought that was a funny thing to be like, just all these red herrings to distract from the obviously creepy dude that's with you the whole time.
Well, especially because the main character, Kelly, I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names.
No, you got it.
She was, very interested in him, if not with him. So it's like that was almost a red herring in itself, where it's just like, well, we're following this girl. She's obviously the protagonist. So is it going to be her sort of new boyfriend?
I think if any movie we ripped off unconsciously, it's probably Scream, because that's exactly what happens in Scream. It's like the most creepy looking dude is Skeet Ulrich, and he's just like there the whole time being like, yes, Sydney. And then it is that guy, and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, she was scary, I guess.
Yeah, I think you planted enough seeds though, because even in the beginning, I'm like, okay, I got to keep an eye on this guy. I'm watching a horror movie. I'm aware of that, so I'm putting the pieces together. But you did enough that like, okay, there's the neighbor. He's probably innocent, but then there's the thing with like, oh, maybe he just punched his daughter in the face. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So you sprinkle enough in there that like, okay, maybe Garrett's not just the outright villain. Maybe it is this guy, and we're being misled this way. So that was cool.
Yeah, there's the 3 guys they go to the party with have like all have the strongest like Ted Bundy brows, who are just like, they all could be murderers.
And the one guy who was like really dialed in on Tatiana.
No, it's the funniest performance in the whole movie to me, and I know that guy is embarrassed about his performance in that movie, and I'm like, you look so hilariously scary, and it's also he's playing such an awkward person that even if he's giving an awkward performance, it works because he's so weird. I don't know, I love that so much.
Yeah, he should not be embarrassed, because I think that's exactly what his character was supposed to be doing.
I know.
He was this super intense, direct guy, but he was ultimately harmless. He just, was into her.
You hear that, Dave Kuyek? That's his name. I wanted him to know.
Awesome. And it's funny too, because like a friend of a friend that I know is that guy. Like we'd go to a bar to see a band play or something, and I was uncomfortable talking to him. He wasn't trying to hit on me. He was just that intense where I'm like, disengage a little bit.
Well, I have so many friends like that too. The classic thing of like interrupting everyone to be like, what's your name? It's like, oh, like just like everyone's like, oh, come on, man, just like wait for a break in the conversation.
Yeah, you're almost doing it on purpose now. That's awesome. Is Death Trip out now? This is something I should know.
It's out now. Death Trip's out now. Check it out.
Get it on VOD.
I can tell. Well, actually, you know what? I was going to list all the places. If you go to deathtripmovie.com, there's a watch now section where I've put all the links, but it's on VOD. In the States, it's on VOD through Prime and Vudu, and it's also through cable services and all these things. In Canada, it's on iTunes and Bell and all these cable, or Rogers and cable things like that. It's on Blu-ray and DVD, but I have not seen it, the Blu-ray or the DVD, so I cannot vouch for it, but I'm sure it's great.
Did you do a commentary track?
No, see, this is my my great sadness, is that we did not. All this happened so fast, and to put special features on the DVD, it cost us money or something like that, and we were like, nah. And so I had this thing in my head. We're going to be getting international distribution and releasing in the UK.
Nice.
So we might get another crack at home video through that market and have a region free one. But the end game was always to put out like a limited run, because we made special features. There's like the movie's already way too long, and there's 45 minutes of special like deleted scenes that exist, and like behind the scenes stuff. And we had commentary tracks. My dream for a commentary track was always, and it's perfect for the pandemic now, was also Kelly and I watching the movie and calling people while we were watching it to be like, oh, let's call Spencer, we'll ask him that question, and then having them come through the commentary track one day.
Yeah, nice.
The answer. So the answer is no, there's no commentary track.
I had to ask. The question I'm sure all creatives hate, but I always feel compelled to ask it, and I don't know why. Do you have anything cooking now for your next thing?
Oh, I'll ask it. Kelly and I have so many things we want to do. We have a bigger one and then a smaller one. And the smaller one, I think we're going to do next. We are going to try. Oh, she just texted me. She's in this house, by the way. So
Oh, okay.
And she texted me, be like,
she
don't
could have
forget to
done the
mention-"
interview with us.
I know. I
she's
thought
50% of your movie.
Do you want to like say hello, or is that a? Can you hear me? I don't know if she can. She messaged me to be like, there is a commentary track. We did have a commentary track that we didn't do with our friend, Superstar Trana Wintour performed it. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. We want to do another movie. It's looking good for us to get it done. And it's just, the description would be like, if you remember the scene in the movie with the one friend who corners Tatiana and starts picking at her skin, it's like we kind of want to do a whole movie of that, which is just going to be like just murderous to watch, but really fun. So yeah, we have tons of stuff we want to do. So many things. And now we're like ready. We're ready to go. We've been in quarantine for like a year. We've been writing scripts, working on this. So we're just like, yes, let's go.
Nice.
2022.
Yeah, really. If we're ever allowed out again.
I know.
It's funny because I ask, and I always feel like it's a natural thing to ask, but some people, I feel like I'm really putting them on the spot where they're like, oh, I just got done with this thing. I don't know. But other people are like you, where they're like, you couldn't stop me from making something else.
Well, the thing with us is that we finished this movie probably like about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And we didn't release it for whatever, but we didn't like fall through for personal reasons. And we had sent it to some festivals, but we didn't do a full festival push. And the only reason it got distribution was someone at the Tribeca Horror Film Festival liked it. It did not get selected, but liked it enough to call their friend who was a distributor and say like, hey, this movie never got selected, got pretty far along, but I always liked it. And I don't know, maybe you should check it out. And this guy contacted us out of nowhere, Han Soto from Kamikaze Dogfight, and was really nice and the champ. So it came out of nowhere. And that's why we're like, oh, so it's weird. It's hard to talk about like anything you did 2 years ago because you feel like immediately embarrassed. But I'm not. I like the movie, but all this to say, I'm really rambling because of that. We have so many. We're ready to go.
That's awesome. Well, everyone should check out Death Trip on VOD. You said it's deathtripmovie.com.
Deathtripmovie.com, Death Trip Movie on Instagram, and Death Trip Movie on Twitter. Anything
else you want to plug? Your own socials, maybe?
If you want to hit me up on Letterboxd, my name is James CW. That's my favorite. Are you on Letterboxd?
I have an account. I don't think I've ever put something on it. So I'll have to.
I love it so much.
I'll make a note now to get on there.
Well, no, you know what's great about it is end of the year, it breaks down. If you faithfully add everything you watch, end of the year, it'll tell you like your most watched actor, your most watched director. And that's always, to me, so fun. Like my most watched actors this year were Sidney Poitier and Matt Damon. That was a weird combination. Yeah. Just like things like that where you're like, oh, okay.
Never would have guessed.
I guess I was really feeling Sidney Poitier for a chunk of this year. I don't know why. And I don't know. Letterboxd is so fun. And I also just love, all I want to talk about with my friends is movies always. So it's the perfect social media for me, where I just get to see what all my friends watched.
Perfect. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Also hard to read reviews of your own movie. That's the one thing where I was like, Jesus, I have to now go with Letterboxd and avoid my movie.
I was gonna say, oh, you look into it specifically, but no, you probably go the other way.
No, I do like once every like 3 days, and I'll be like, no, why?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not at all knocking your movie, but just it's the internet. You're not even going to get an honest opinion. You're just going to need someone who's going to crap on it just for the sake of doing it.
No, I know, and that's the thing is, the only reviews that bother me are ones that are making arguments with logistical stuff where I'm like, no, I swear it's all there. We tried really hard. But when anyone says there's too much talking or something, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't bother me because I like movies like that. Or when they say the characters are unlikable, I'm like, yeah, that's do you want to? I just want Kelly to say hello before. This is the first interview I've given without her, so I was very.
Oh, she definitely could have jumped on if she wanted to.
What? Oh my God! What are you looking at the poster of Death Trip right now? What's happening?
I'm like, what did I miss? It's been an hour.
We talked about M. Night Shyamalan a bunch.
Oh, sick.
What show do we love? No, Servant.
Servant, yeah.
The Visit, by the way, did you see that movie?
The Visit?
Yeah,
is that with the grandparents?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has my favorite dumb shock scare out of any movie ever, and it's when the grandma goes like, hello, right in front.
That's like the funniest movies I've ever seen. I love it. It's very funny.
I know. I spent way too long trying to defend Eli Roth, too, which is a fruitless thing. But we both love Knock Knock, that's why.
Yeah. Amazing movie.
Yeah, we had some tangents, but it was fun.
I'm excited to listen. I heard a lot of it from the other room. which was great.
Yeah, I mean, you could have been on.
Well, here
You
we
know
are.
this?
I guess you're on now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's a special cameo.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's like the reverse of our movie, where
Yeah.
there's a lot of me, and then she shows up for one memorable scene.
Okay.
I know I M. Night Shyamalan myself in this movie and put myself in a role.
Yes.
Arguably, it's worse when he takes the bigger roles. So maybe I should. Oh, yeah, she's gonna go.
Nice.
Okay, thank you so
Take
much for
care.
having.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. That was a lot of fun. Anytime you want to do it again, hit me up.
Please,
We'll do it.
I would love to be. Are you on the So Wizard podcast, like the group podcast as well, right?
It's kind of funny because when they started, they had 4 people, and Joey DiCarlo is one of the hosts. I think he's the one who kind of came up with the idea and engineered the whole thing. I knew him from way back when I was like 15 and 16 in high school. I would try to put on concerts, like punk and ska concerts. And he was in a ska band that everybody loved. And they would make a 3-hour drive to play whatever show, it was $5 to get into a VFW. His band would always show up. And as soon as they agreed, every other band in the area would be like, I want to play a show with them. So we'd have, pretty solid concerts. And I was like 15, I had no idea what I was doing. And we just kept in touch all these years. So when he launched the podcast, he asked if I could do the website, because that's what I do. It's my day job. So at first I just did the website, and then I guested a couple times, and he's like, hey, if you want to, write for the site, we could use more content. And then I guested a few more times, and they wanted to start YouTube, and I ended up doing a couple Comic-Con coverages, smaller cons. And then he's just like, if you want to do the YouTube thing, just run with it. So I'm kind of like the unofficial 4th member now, just staying mostly to YouTube because it, keeps me plenty busy.
Well, I was just gonna say, if you ever want to have me on to talk about not my movie, I would love to contribute to some sort of list conversations.
For sure, we could do something.
Huge shout out to James and thanking him for taking the time for coming on the show. Like I've said 1,000 times, like you could see in the interview, that was an immense amount of fun. We will be doing more top 5 videos. If you want to see the first one we did top 5 winter movies. It's available now on the YouTube channel. And make sure you check out Death Trip, available now on VOD. I know it's on Amazon, that was my go-to, but it's on all the major ones, iTunes, Apple TV, Roku, all that stuff. Whatever you use, there's no shortage of options to get to Death Trip directed by James Watts. Speaking of other things we have on the channel, please remember to subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow our audience. You're not going to want to miss out on movies. We have a ton more interviews, ton more new movie coverage coming your way. Been reaching out to comic creators also, so we're going to expand these interviews a little bit to more pop culture fields. Also, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week wherever you get your podcasts. So Wizard Podcast can be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month you get multiple monthly bonus shows. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments or leave us something on social media. All the accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. Thanks again.